had a little bonus.
Yeah.
Now you go fast forward a little while through, around, I think right now we're around 2000, 2002 in your history.
Yep.
Take me through, because I met you in like 2010. That was your first year announcing at the racetrack. Mm-hmm. So I remember going on a trip to go get some parts. I heard something on the radio, and Dad brings up, man, Brad's got this hot shot announcer kid coming
hot
in.
Shot.
No, seriously, like it. They talked like it was the best thing since sliced bread.
Oh boy.
And so
not Joey Logano, just to be clear.
No, that's on a local level.
Before you go down that road, fast forward to about 96 right now.
That's a rewind, because we're
How about
Hey,
did I say fast forward?
You did.
All right,
so
96.
We're going to back it up to 96.
All right.
And I've told this story before, but Tyler lived down the street from my grandmother.
Oh yeah, Hilldale Drive.
So
my dad still lives there.
This is
still lives on Hilldale.
This is about 2nd or 3rd grade probably at its peak, right, Tyler? Something like that. So we all had, bicycles and no video games, and so it would be Tyler, myself, and my cousin Chase, and we would all race. And we had different tracks. They were all, there was one track that was like half my grandma's driveway and half our neighbor's driveway. That was like Daytona.
There was one where we went down the neighbor's driveway and had to flip a U.
Yeah, so there was all these tracks. Well, Tyler, we would be racing, and Tyler would be announcing the whole time.
Yeah, this is embarrassing. I forgot about
it. We're like on Phantom bike race tracks.
Yes. Back then you listened to the race while watching it. Sundays I always watched with my grandpa, and a lot of times we would have the radio on because Barney Hall. Who didn't want to listen to Barney Hall? He'd rather listen to Barney Hall call a race than the TV.
So you're watching the TV on mute.
Sometimes, yeah.
With Barney Hall calling it.
And then if we were going somewhere on a Sunday, there wasn't no music to listen to. We're listening to Barney Hall. We're listening to MRN.
I used to listen to Barney Hall in the race shop. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
There's something to, even now, I listen to MRN now. So if I absolutely can't watch it, I'll listen to MRN. It's a different experience.
No, yeah. It's just like this year at the Indy 500, I muted the TV, and TuneIn app had the Indianapolis Radio Network, and it's just more exciting.
Yeah.
So
it is.
I fell in love with the announcer side of it as a kid, but I didn't think I was ever going to do it.
So you never thought you were going to do it, but what made you? Okay, so fill in the gap. There's a gap of about 6 years, 8 years.
Yeah.
Fill in the gap. What did Tyler do racing-wise during that time?
So 2002, my grandpa gets sick just before Thanksgiving and is dead in 6 weeks. He had, I think it was advanced mesothelioma, and was just gone like that. He died 3 days after Christmas. And that was who I always went to the racetrack with. And I had, racing history on my daddy's side too, but going to Speedway was always with my mom's dad. So when he died, I didn't really have anyone to take me, and I didn't really know that I wanted to go, honestly. So, I just didn't go. I got into playing high school football, and that kind of consumed me for 3 years, and then I got, sent to private school, and then I went to college and tried playing football there for a year and realized I didn't really want to do that. And then that was 2007, I started announcing college athletics at Averitt, a little Division III school in Danville, and I was just right on it, man. It was just, I loved doing it. I loved looking up the stats. I loved just broadcasting. And then in 2008, I was working a summer job at P&S Machine, and I was working there with my buddy Benton Fogelman. And he was way bigger redneck than I was. Still
is that possible?
Well, he's more in touch with his redneck side. And I remember one Friday, we would get off work at 3:30. We'd work 7 to 3:30. And we'd go cash our checks at the gas station because we didn't have checking accounts.
Did they take part of your check?
Oh, yeah, they did a piece. And I remember just one Thursday, me and Benton got to talking, and I was like, you want to go to Speedway tomorrow night? And he's like, yeah, sure, let's go. And I remember going. And I wasn't sure how I was going to feel, but I remember I walked in, and bought my ticket, bought something to eat. I sat down in a different section. I didn't sit in the same section. I never have. But it just felt like I'd finally come back home. And, 2008 I know was a tough year for Ace. Doug Smith was at the helm, and the housing crisis had really hurt a lot of the racing. I remember, seeing Speedy Fawcett and Rodney Cook, and I think that was when your dad was racing and trying to be a tech. And, car counts, they were down a little bit, but it just felt good to be there. And then the next Friday was the UARA race, where Brad Allen and Gary Young Jr. got into it on the front stretch. The UARA race, they're almost 4 wide coming to the checkered flag, and it relit the fire. And I started going to races again.
Around that time, I wonder who was in UARA. Because that was probably a pretty prime time for some of those drivers.
I remember Darrell Wallace Jr. finished 4th in that race. I remember that. Kyle Grissom was in that race.
I was going to say, no, Delaney was later.
He was a super late model driver too. He didn't drive a late model. No.
He had the 10 car is what I remember.
Yeah, he was
the DB in the number.
He was running supers with Jay Fogelman and all them on the Pass Tour. But Kyle Grissom was UARA.
Chase Elliott raced a little bit. I don't know if he raced that race.
He didn't. I don't think he didn't run UARA. He was a super late model guy. De Benedetto was in that race. I do remember that before he got his Gibbs deal. But that just relit my fire, and I just started coming back to A Speedway every Friday. I went back to the Martinsville late model race. I had not been to that since 2002. I even went to Southern National for their Thanksgiving Classic and froze to death watching supers. I drove 3 hours back to my dorm room in college on a Sunday, and I was just like, man, maybe that was too much. But it relit my fire. And then 2009, I'm just a fan. And here's where I think it'll get fun for you. So at the end of 2009, what was that guy running the racetrack? Larry Rose, maybe Rosenthal
or Rose something.
He was running the track, and I had been announcing college stuff for a couple of years. So I messaged Larry about being a pit reporter. I didn't want to take. I think it was at the time it was Ned Thigpen and Wesley Allen were the announcers. So I didn't want to take their job. I didn't want to do that, but I wanted to try to be a pit reporter and just get my foot in the door. And Larry tells me he was probably about halfway through a bottle of wine when I interviewed, and he said, well, I kind of like who I've already got, but maybe you can write stuff for the website. Larry didn't last much longer. So 2010 comes around, Brad Allen gets hired on. And I think within his first week, I sent him an email about trying to be a pit reporter. And I come into his office, and we're going through the interview. He's asking me about what I know about A Speedway, and I'm just rattling. I'm just going
rattled his cage there.
And he actually asked me to fictionalize a race in my head and call the last 5 laps. So I had to on the spot just make up something. And I did. And
can you do that right now?
No.
No, I'm serious. I want to hear that. I want to hear that Tyler Williams authenticity.
It's just tough.
Closing laps, 1998 Daytona 500.
Boy, howdy. I don't know. Maybe I used to could do it. I don't know if I could go.
No pressure.
You know what I think? I could probably do qualifying.
Man.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that too.
My buddy Ross used to say that. We'd go to a race and he'd be like, hey, announce this for me. And I'm like, bro, I bought a ticket. I want to just watch. But so anyway, I guess I impressed Brad enough, and he hired Wesley to come announce with me open night. And open night went great. The next Friday, Wesley missed it, and Brad's freaking out because I've only announced one race. And I was just like, I think I'll be okay. I don't think I need to co-announce. I think I'll be okay. We got through that night, and everything went fine, and we were off and running. That started now. I'm 12 years into announcing races. So
12 years.
That's where it all started.
What are the highlights of your announcing career at this point? What are the high points for you?
A Speedway highlights?
No.
In general?
Yeah. You've done a whole lot. So what are the high points of your announcing career thus far?
All-Star race at Charlotte, I think, was 2015. I got to fill in for Ken Squire on the PA. Working with Ozzy Altman was the experience of a lifetime. Ozzy is amazing. I hate that he had his health issues and stuff, and he hasn't really been able to announce. But working with Ozzy was just amazing. Learned from him, and Lenny Baticki was our pit reporter, so that was probably the biggest one. Probably the most fun I had was monster trucks at the dirt track at Charlotte. That was my first ever SMI event.
Wait, what year was that?
2014, 2015, something like that.
I was there.
Yeah, because Bigfoot was there.
Bigfoot was there.
Yeah.
Me and Chase took our kids to that race. You were announcing
I
that?
think you Facebooked me or something like during it, I think.
Did I?
But it was funny because I
funny.
had never worked for anybody like this. And Lenny Baticki pulled me aside and was just like, son, you were talking to 12-year-old boys. That's who you're talking to. So that's how I announced it. And I was, they're it ain't like Greensboro Coliseum where they go, womp.
Yeah.
At the dirt track, they could just fly and take the jumps, and freestyle was great. And that dinosaur that ate cars was out there. I mean, it was a blast. And I was working with Ozzy.
Wasn't there a story about that
Dale Earnhardt
talked about?
When it first came out.
Dale Earnhardt had that. I think what did he do? He took it. It's like he rented it or did something with it, because there was a story with him and.
I keep wanting to say that.
Humpy Wheeler.
No,
Humpy Wheeler.
Because when I
They had a name, but I forgot the name.
The Humpy Wheeler podcast of Dale Jr. Download, they were talking about that.
Oh yeah, because they would pull it out for 600 weekend, and it would eat cars during pre-race.
And that's what I think Dale Sr. actually operated it, doing something.
That's vaguely coming. I know what you're saying. That
I think he actually operated it during one of those pre-race.
He was one of the first people to operate it at the Charlotte race. It was on the download, I think. But I can't think of the name. That thing has a very famous name. And I can't.
I'll look it up after this, and I'm going to be mad at myself.
Me too, but
I should know the name.
If anybody knows the name of the robot dinosaur that was tearing up cars in the '90s, leave it in the comments below.
Yes, but that was a lot of fun, and then Super Modified today Speedway. That was just a fun event to be a part of. I didn't necessarily call that one, but that was just a once in a lifetime experience to see a Super Modified today Speedway. And then I got to do Martinsville late model race 1 year with NASCARHometracks.com. It was me and Tony Stevens and Matt Kenfield were in the booth, and Derek Perniciglia was on pit road. So it was like, and we didn't have video, it was just audio, so it was kind of like MRN style with a 3-man booth and a pit reporter. And that was a ton of fun just because, I held Tony in high regard and still do. And Matt Kenfield was a class act, and that was just a lot of fun to get to do that. I'm trying to think of some other big ones.
So, I got a zinger for you.
Oh, the dirt track at Charlotte. I've gotten to do a crate late model race and a steelhead late model race there, and it's working at the dirt track at Charlotte would probably ultimately be the highlight of my career.
You kind of stole my thunder on that because that was my first job.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, but check this out. So I won't put you on the spot and say who you don't like working with.
As far as announcers go?
But I will say, who's your favorite person or favorite people that you've worked with in the booth? I've seen like you and Brandon Schroll having just a blast in the booth. But who is, even if it's not a Speedway specific, who's one of your favorite people that you've ever worked with?
Brandon was a ton of fun because Brandon just had so much energy.
I remember.
So that was contagious, because there would be times when I'd be like, I'd get a little tired or something, because I'm not exactly in shape, and running up and down would wear me out, but Brandon would always pick me up, so that was fun. Lenny Baticki, hands down, probably just the classiest person I've ever worked with, and good too. Derek Perniciglia, when we did the Martinsville race together, when I would hear his pit reports, it would make me want to step my game up, because Derek is just so detailed and just so good at what he does. And I think we did a car store race together, and it was like him just being there. I was like, all right, I need to do even better, And then honestly, last weekend I got to announce with Phil Combs up at Tri-County, and that was like working with Barney Hall, because he was just rattling off these stories and just so much history and so much knowledge. I didn't even want to talk back. I just wanted to sit there and listen, but I had to keep, kind of keep us on pace because we were on pay-per-view, so I had to talk about what's on the screen. But you know, there's been a lot of good ones, and there's been some I didn't like working with. You know, there's plenty out there that you know, I think anything you do, there's certain people that you don't like or certain styles you don't like, and I think the biggest thing I come back to is I like working with people that are humble. I don't like working with arrogant people. I don't like working with people that want to try to steal the spotlight, because at the end of the day, and I've tried to live this for 12 years, but I haven't always lived it, but I think more recently I have more than not, and that's the announcer is not the show. The show is the drivers on the track racing. Ain't no one ever bought a ticket to hear Tyler Williams announce. I take that back. Maybe my grandpa.
I'm going to contest.
I was going to argue.
You're going to contest.
I'm going to contest this
because objectively speaking, I think you bring, especially when you're good at what you do, you bring a different element to the show.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you're seeing some of those guys are icons now, you know, that have the history with the sport, and you bring it in, you go back and watch one of those old races, it makes you realize how valuable they are to the show. What was the guy that worked with Ken Squire back in the day that had that accent? He was
David Hobbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go back and listen to some of his old stuff, and him and Ken Squire working together, man, they were part of the show.
That was TV though, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was TV.
Yeah. So it's a little different when it's TV versus the track guy.
Now, Speedway doesn't have this problem now, but probably some of the issue that you're thinking of is if you can't hear that well. And you can't during the race, right? Because the cars are louder. But if you're listening on the radio or you're watching TV, the announcer is part of the show.
Oh, okay.
I
see that.
I'm going to drop this nugget on you. It was Robosaurus. I looked it up.
June 23rd at Dorton Arena, it's Robosaurus and Monster Jam.
Now, Tyler, why can't you do that here now?
No. Maybe when I was 20-something, now at 32 I don't. So, yeah.
Hang on, age is not a factor here because Mr. Kyle Painter has us all covered.
4,000 years old.
Man, you're old.
So you
maybe I just mean that from a professional standpoint.
Yeah,
I don't like
I think if you polled short track enthusiasts, you would find out that it's actually more important than what you probably think it is. But that's looking from the announcer standpoint.
Like my example of being an arrogant announcer would be when you go down to interview the winner of the race, and you're talking more in your question than he is in his answer.
That's a big thing for me.
That to me is being in the way. It's not. It's your job to ask him a question, but it's also your job to get out of the way and let him speak, because he or she, I should say, they're the show, not you. So that's just where I come out on.
I'm glad you said that, because if I could give anybody doing interviews any piece of advice, if you have a 3-minute question, cut it in half and then cut it in half, because that's just ask them the question and give them room to talk, and then when they're talking, don't cut them off. Let them finish their thought and then jump in with something.
Yeah, but I think to that too, when you're at the track, one of the first things you don't see what you came to see, but you can hear what you came to see, so you know what's going on. There's a story being told. So you say you get to the racetrack at 6:30, gates are open, people are already there, food's being cooked. Qualifying hasn't started yet, but practice is underway, and you can hear race cars, but you can't see them. But you can also hear the announcer, because you kind of get that tone from out that far away. But the thing is like you know that you're at a racetrack, you know that you're at a stadium environment, and you can hear that, and that kind of sets the tone for what's going on, especially in the midway. Your midway experience is huge, and Speedway is fortunate enough to have a very, fairly large midway that we're working on even expanding. But
practice is your warm up. Practice, like what I used to do at Ace, was when a class of cars would come out. As they would come out, they'd probably make a pace lap or two before they, start practicing and come up to speed. I would try to identify each driver, hit them hometown names, sponsors, maybe throw a nugget, and that was where I would kind of loosen up with all the, I would just have notes upon notes.
Right.
From just talking to these
And
guys.
that's what I was going to say, is how you feel that dead space. The dead space of the broadcast. If there's a transition period, like, You know, obviously they want you to stay off the mic during the driver's meeting so everybody can hear. But,
Yeah.
you know, outside of that, filling that dead space is important. And how you do that is important to the experience.
How you do that is you bring in Scott Hendren.
Yeah, music. I don't like over talking during cautions. Like I don't like that when I buy a ticket to go to a race. Like you put a little bit of music on, not so loud that it's blasting my ears out, but just a little bit. Because a lot of times if I'm in the stands and it's under caution, I probably came with somebody at the racetrack. It's a good chance for a little conversation. I might make a bathroom run or a concession stand run. I don't always want to hear you talking. Right. You know, as a fan, I really don't want to do it as an announcer. You know, so everybody's got their own taste, but that's what I like.
We tried to take some notes though, because you know during the beginning of our tenure at Ace Speedway, you actually came back on and you were really excited. We were co-workers at Civation.
Yep.
And when we first made this announcement, I don't think I told you prior to it being posted in the Times News. I think a lot of people found out through the Times News that deal had gone through, but the excitement that came over your face, and I'm not trying to steal the show from you, but as you know, I want to tell you that the excitement that came over your face at the beginning was
as he steals the
amazing.
show from me.
But I think you know the enjoyment that you got from knowing that you were going to be able to go back home. You wanted to jump in and help. You wanted to help be social media. You wanted to help be, you know, not only just announce, but you wanted to help lay the framework for what not only was then, but is still now. Yeah. And, you know, really appreciate that and that effort. But I think you did a really good job. And we took notes from when you were there before. You know, having the music even pumps up the drivers. You know, when you're walking through the pits, getting your notes from drivers that, you know, haven't raced there yet, or from you know, you haven't seen this car in a while and you want to get all the sponsors written down. You know, there's a little bit of, you know, TI, big things popping or something, you know, to get you energetic.
See, I learned real quick to not play rap.
Well, it was
I got so much hate. Wow. I used to try to play hip hop instrumentals. And I will never forget, I played that, you know that Grits song from Tokyo Drift,
yes.
My Life Be Like, ooh. So I tried playing that on a Friday night bass. I got a comment on the Facebook page that said, from someone in the stands, I'd rather hear a duck fart than hear this S word that you're playing.
I guarantee that you could narrow that down to about
five.
Yeah.
So then I was like, all right, maybe I should just stick to like 90s country. That's a safe. But I do have like a few pop-up songs.
It was great because at this time there was nobody in the stands. I was getting fuel, you know, bringing tires down pit road, and
you're controlling the energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Controlling the energy.
You're doing that, you know, not necessarily through voice but through sound. And so we brought Mr. Scott Hendren back. Big shout to Scott Hendren in front of me, Tattoo, 95.1, 94.3 the Maverick, for bringing that back to us at Ace Speedway for the season. It's really cool. He's working with us to try to, you know, make that part of the studio better, and we've got it narrowed down to now where I can actually play music through my Bluetooth off my phone or from a laptop. It's going to be great.
That's good. Because I mean, you need that to feel. I mean, you go to a minor league baseball game. You don't just hear baseball. I mean, during between innings, you might hear a little bit of music here and there. You might see a game or something gets played, but I mean, you know, as long as it's not, you know, over the top blasting my eardrums out, like, yeah.
So glad you brought up
No, you go ahead.
I'm glad you brought up baseball, because that is a prime example of somebody filling too much space with talk. Like a lot of people's criticism of baseball is like, I love watching a baseball game live, but I hate watching it on TV, because on TV they fill it up with all this nonsense, talking about something that happened in 1919 that nobody knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So that's a classic example of somebody filling too much space.
I used to do the Burlington Royals games on PA, and I wanted to get my reads. They had like specific things I had to read in between certain innings. I wanted to get that out as clear and as quick as I could to let the music come back in before I introduce the batter. Because if I feel like I'm talking the whole time in between an inning, like if I've been sitting in the stands, I tune you out. I don't want to listen to you talk the whole time.
That's RIP, by the way. Burlington Royals, RIP.
Yeah, now they're sock puppets.
Sock puppet.
So
You've
there's
been
that.
to a game.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
so
You've
Tyler,
been to more than one game.
I've been to one.
One game? Chad's been to more than
No,
one
me
game.
and Chad went.
my dad said it's great. I need to go check it out.
It actually was pretty good.
I just don't like the mascot.
Well, the mascots are changing though.
That
it's not
whole.
just-
I'm just holding on.
What is Danville's?
the Otterbots?
Otterbots.
That one's kind of cool.
They were. I want to say that's who they were playing.
They were playing.
Probably, that's
when
their
me
rival.
and Chad met. But
Yeah.
when so Tyler, if there's some kid out there that is thinking about being an announcer,
Run, get another job. What kid?
what can that kid do? I mean, we always see the 6-year-old flag kid that's imitating the flag man up in the, you know.
I remember when Brandon Willard was that kid.
I remember when Thomas Scott was that kid. Looking
I remember that
And
too.
look at how the times have changed.
Yeah, and now you know.
The two of them have followed that path, and you know Brandon Willard is mean with the sticks right
Oh
now.
yeah, he's one of the best.
So what's the advice from Tyler Williams to
Tiger Williams.
Tiger Williams?
Oh boy.
The rapper.
First and foremost, you need to know who you're talking about. It's one thing to write down sponsors. It's one thing to write down someone's driving a Ford, a Chevrolet, a Pontiac, a Dodge, a Toyota, whatever. It's another thing to get down there and actually talk to people, because what you'll find out is if you get down and talk to people, and not everybody wants to talk to you. Not, you know, some people are there and they're working on stuff. Don't get in their way. If they're busy changing a gear on a race car, don't bother them. Give them a hey, how's it going, and keep it moving. Don't sit there and bug them. But if you do get to talking to them, you know, keep your conversation short and sweet. Be honest. And if you do that, you're a lot less likely to say something stupid on the microphone, because if you don't get to know these people, it becomes a lot easier to say something on the microphone that you regret. You know, you call someone a blatant dirty driver on the microphone. You know, their kids hear that, their family hears that, and stuff like that. Whereas if you know them personally, you're a lot less likely to say something foolish like that. You might say it offhand, off the record, in private conversation. That's fine, but if you're on the microphone, it's a different level of professionalism. So you need to get to know who you're talking about. You need to do your homework. You know, I don't care if their sponsorship is the Mayberry ice cream and the decal's barely big enough to fit on the window. Write it down. I remember 2010, Jason Turner didn't have a whole lot of decals on his race car, but I remember him driving the Guardian Angel Senior Home Care Chevrolet. That decal was on the window. It was not on the quarter panel. It was not on the hood. It was not on the door. It was on the window. But it was the only one he had that I remember, and I wrote it down, and I said it every time. What do you mean I'm
It
wrong?
was on the quarter panel, the black car, the black number 2.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
I thought it was just on the window.
No, right quarter panel.
Well, it was on the car, and I wrote it down.
Well, so
There's that, and then there's also, you know, you could go for an hour about developing style. I'd say my best thing would be pick things you like from other people and then develop your own style off of it. You can. It's okay to take things you like and then spin it your own way. And then the third thing, do not scream. I cannot stand the screaming race announcer. If you want to show me that what's happening on the track is exciting, do it by your tone of voice, not by your volume. If aliens land, then maybe you can scream. But I would just say, do it with your tone of voice. You see, I'm down here talking a little bit. We're side by side on lap 25, and they're going 3 wide into turn number 3. See, I'm up a little bit on volume, but it's mainly with my tone of voice. Do it that way.
Slide down.
Because if you're screaming at me the whole time, now I don't care what you're saying so much, because you've been screaming about them on a pace lap.
and you do that really well, and that was kind of going to lead me into my next question about. I've always wondered how announcers really work on their flow. And what got me thinking about that was at the NASCAR Hall of Fame, they have a little thing that you sit down in front of, and you're watching a race, and you have these little headphones. Have you seen what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's awesome.
And you sit there, and it tells you what to say, and you say it, and you're listening to yourself, and you're like, man, that's got to be hard to do that for 500 laps.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you're probably looking forward to a caution a little bit, but to do that and what you just did is what makes you good at what you do. But knowing how to manage the excitement there is got to be part of the craft of being an announcer.
And the question I had was, that wisdom, does that come from time and experience, or does that come from like your journalism major? Do you learn some of that stuff, or does it just come natural?
I didn't learn a thing about announcing from my journalism class. I really did. It was
5 years of college, and you learned.
You know what's funny about that? Dan Patrick said the same thing. He said, if I could give anybody advice, if you want to go to school, but you don't really need it.
Yeah, you don't.
Right.
That program I went to at Averett was a print-based journalism program. And I should have learned how to write better. I fell in love with announcing. I should have learned how to write better, but that's beside the point. But
you're a good writer.
Like Kyle said, it really just comes from experience, and it also comes from listening when mentors talk to you about things. Mm-hmm. Lenny Viticki got on me a ton early on, and I was smart enough to actually listen to it, where he would give me a little nugget. Try doing this instead of that. Try doing that instead of this. Just little things here and there. Like Lenny got on me real big about when you see a car on the racetrack and you're trying to like you see someone blow their motor or something in the middle of the race. He said, "Tell me where the car is and what color the car is. Speak as if you're speaking to someone in the grandstand that is at their very first race. Not everybody there's a diehard. There's some things I will say that are tuned to diehards. But if I see something I want you to look at in the stand from the stands, I'm telling you, turn 2, coming down the back straightaway, the black car moving to the inside, smoke coming out of the back end. That is such and such. So just that little thing, and then
something that reminds me of is Rod Barber used to see speaking of those videos, I watched a Rod Barber video one time.
Oh,
and
Rod.
I can't remember who it was that blew an engine, but he said after he said it on the front stretch, he said, "So and so blew a motor. No more mosquitoes tonight."
Those little, see, now that just comes from time.
The little zingers. That means a lot.
It's kind of like you see somebody do something stupid and you're like, oh man, that guy, if brains were dynamite, he couldn't blow his nose.
That reminds me of I had a video game on Nintendo 64, Kobe Bryant, NBA courtside.
Yeah.
And it would have all those. He couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. You know?
But you know what? If that's not your thing, you can't force it. You know, it's got to be natural. You can't be sitting there looking at a script to say this stuff. It's either got to. It's kind of like, remember when Jim Ross used to be the WWF announcer?
Oh my God!
Yeah, like
he got hit with a
man, that match was bowling shoe ugly. You know, so it's got to be natural. You can't force it. You can't just sit there and have a script of stuff. So that part, it just comes from experience. I mean, I feel like I'm still working on my style now, and I'm 12 years in. You know, you're always trying to find a better way to make a better mousetrap. So I mean,
so
you also sort of got to be careful with the catchphrases.
Yeah, you can overdo them.
Because sometimes, like Darryl Waltrip, do you think when he first said "boogity boogity boogity boys, let's go"? Probably by his 80th time saying that,
right? It's
like a caricature of that first time he said it, and he's sort of trapped into saying it now. And you know, like you don't want to say that every time, so you gotta you don't want to get trapped like that. Do you have anything like that, or do you know anybody that's been trapped with a catchphrase? And man, I wish I didn't have to say this.
Anybody with a pulse has got. In journalism, we call them crutch words.
Okay.
There's certain things that you lean on. Like if you don't know what else to say, you'll say that. Like a lot of people's crutch word is You ever get to talk to someone in conversation? I take the truck over to
That's me.
And that takes time.
Host of the Side Draft podcast on this mic.
Another one young announcers can do. I like this. Find different ways to describe the same thing. This is actually a Ken Squire trick. A car spins out. Don't call it a spin out every time. Like find a way to describe that situation 10 different ways. Okay. Like Doc Emmerich used to do this with hockey. Doc Emmerich had 20 different ways to try to describe to you how the puck was getting up and down the ice, or how a shot was hit, or things like that. Like he talked about, they ladled it in, or they pitchforked it in.
Ricky Stenhouse has ran out of talent in 24.
So you gotta be careful though.
Or excuse me, Ricky Spinhouse.
Because they'll come get you for stuff. I've done before. I've put my foot in my mouth several times at Ace. Especially when we were on the radio, people would hear it and they would, and I'd get in trouble for it. So that goes back to the whole, get to know who you're actually talking about. That way, if someone does do something absurdly ignorant, dangerous, and stupid, and you call it out, it actually means something. If you're calling them stupid every time they get laughed, it's like, well, I mean, maybe he's working on his car. Maybe he's not good enough yet. He's got to develop his talent,
I've got one more question. I don't know if you guys got anything.
Oh, I got plenty.
All right, so I've got one question, and it's kind of an indie type question. Like it'll be the end of. So, what's your ultimate goal? What's the goal for Tyler Williams?
What does the goal used to be, or what is the goal now?
What's the goal now? What did it used to be?
It used to be MRN or PRN. That was the goal. I wanted to do it for a living. I wanted to be. I don't know if I would have ever been Barney Hall, but I would have taken being a turn announcer or a pit reporter for MRN. I wanted to be gone every weekend doing it. And I wanted that to be my living.
But why not now?
Life changes. I'm a firm believer that, through the last 5 years of being married and actually going to church and actually not just sitting there listening to the sermon on Sunday, like going back and reading scripture daily and praying daily and confessing daily, I'm a firm believer that if you seek the Lord honestly, a lot of times what'll happen, and if you ask God in a sincere manner, like, show me what I'm supposed to be doing, because there's something a lot more important than announcing races. And I felt that in me take away my drive to do it. Like, it's just not as fun as it used to be. And like, there's a lot of things I've set aside. I don't watch NFL football anymore. I can't tell you the last NBA basketball game I watched. NASCAR race on TV used to control my Sunday. I would get out of church and I'm like, I want to get home in time because the green flag's 1 o'clock. Now, if I catch it, cool. If not, it's not my priority anymore. I watch a lot of highlights on YouTube now because of that. But it's like, I think as you get older, if you are seeking that, if you're seeking God's will for your life, it's gonna change. It will change your priorities. You won't even know it. Like my pastor talks about how he used to be an avid hunter, like couldn't wait till hunting season, bow season, rifle season, whatever it was. Doesn't even hunt anymore. And he's like, I don't know why. Like God took his priorities and they changed them. I'm a firm believer of that, and I still have fun going to the racetrack and sitting in the stands and just being there and enjoying the sport. But as far as wanting to be there super early, being as dedicated as you need to be a good announcer and not just be some slap nut that's out there making things up here and there to actually know what you're talking about and put the time and dedication in, that's kind of waned for me.
But if the opportunity comes along, if it comes back,
like if Charlotte Motor Speedway,
it circles back. MRN circles back, PRN circles back, and says, "Hey, Rob Albright is retiring.
Oh.
We want you, Tyler Williams." Do you seize that opportunity, or do you?
I wouldn't do it full time. I would do a spot fill in, but I wouldn't do it full time. It's just not. Another thing I found out through talking to a lot of people in the industry, and especially me and Buddy Payne talk about this all the time, how a lot of those guys, I'm sure they love what they do and they're living their dream. It's one thing a lot of them have in common. It's hard to be a family man with that schedule. You are gone an awful lot. It's very taxing, and it doesn't mean you can't do it, because some people do, but do I really want to do that? Like me and Allison, when we got engaged, before we got married, we did the premarital counseling. And one of the things we did was we took the love language quiz. And my love language was acts of service. Like I get a real kick out of coming home and my laundry's folded or dinner's cooking, stuff like that. Hers is quality time. So even if we're just sitting there watching House on Amazon Prime or watching something on Hulu or something, where how she accepts love is quality time. And like it's not a lot of fun when I leave the house on Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning to go travel somewhere. Now I have fun when the race starts and I'm doing my thing, but the traveling to and fro and being gone that long, I don't like that. Like I like hanging out with my wife. I love hanging out with my wife. I want to keep hanging out with her. I have a dedication to marriage that I think part of it stems from the fact that I do come from divorced parents. So I don't know, I'll never know the full reason that everything went wrong. quite honestly, it's probably really none of my business. That's their relationship. I'm a product of that relationship, but I want to give my marriage and, my wife, I don't want to ever leave a stone unturned because I felt like I needed to go be a race announcer. So that's I think a big part of why I'm stepping back. I'm at the end of the year, I'm leaving. I have 2 obligations right now. I have Southeast Dirt Modified Series and Southeast Super Trucks. Both series directors know I'm not coming back at the end of this year. Probably the only thing I'll do next year is
full-time Ace Speedway.
No.
Sorry. Did I say that? Did I say that out loud?
Part-time Ace Speedway.
Did I say that out loud?
I've been trying.
Well, I'll leave you on a positive note. The only thing I'm planning on doing is color commentary for 5 high school football games. And that's just because all I have to do is show up. It's not a lot of travel. Games are done by 9:30. I'm back home, and that's
where you started.
And that's Friday. But I think I told you this because last year I filled in for you. I don't mind being the fill-in guy, but I don't want to be committed to a full season. Like I had a lot of fun. Those I think we got 3 races in last year where I filled in, and that was fun because I didn't have any. There wasn't no pressure to it or nothing. I knew most everybody, and who I didn't, I got to know real quick. And
I think all the pressure was on me, dude.
Was it?
That's true.
So that's why podcasting fills a good void for you because
it does.
Short of this one lasting a little bit already, but
my bad.
It's short. No. I think it's good content. It's short, but it also allows you to still talk about racing. It allows you to get behind a microphone and still do what you love to do.
Travel's not that bad.
Yeah, I had so much fun when we recorded at your house the other day. Who knows when that episode will actually come out. You're pulling a Jason Turner on me.
Stay tuned for the side draft return.
Like I've
It's
lost
coming
about that. Like when I went to interview Barry Begley, that was a good one. Brian Obajinsky, I have fun having those conversations, and even those I have to kind of time them in because that's time and travel, but it's not as demanding as
you got to get a gig like the Bologna Burger podcast. You just got a studio.
That guy's a loser.
Spoiler alert, it's Kyle.
I was about to say, that was a harsh critic right there.
No.
Well, Tyler, we really appreciate you coming on the show, man. We really
You
appreciate
act like you had 10 million other questions. Do you want one more to get in?
No, we closed it with that, man. We're all good.
Okay.
I felt like it was
I want to get one more because we were going to ask you this before.
Yeah.
What did you think of Kyle Busch after that race?
The Atlanta race?
Well, let's not even make it like that. What do you think of another driver after a race berating another driver?
I mean,
in that fashion. We'll just use that as the example, but any driver that does like that.
Oh.
So that's sort of been the hot button issue this week, right?
I mean, as a fan, I mean, it usually is just going to reinforce how you feel about someone. It either reinforces that you love their passion or you hate them because they're a jerk. I don't really have an opinion. I mean, that's his soapbox to stand on if he wants to. You know, I mean, I've heard Dale Earnhardt complain. I heard Rusty Wallace complain. I heard Jeff Gordon complain. They all complain. It's just how much do they actually say with the microphone in front of their face? You know, that's why Radioactive is so great because I think it shows what they're really like in the cars. Like Truex whines and complains every time a lap car on his way. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's his. You know, maybe back in the day I would have been like, man, that guy's a jerk. But now I'm like, you know what? That's his avenue to let loose with his frustration. Whatever he wants to use it for is up to him.
It's necessary though. It makes the ratings.
Yes.
It makes the ratings.
Like
sells t-shirts.
Oh, as a kid, I used to love a Todd Massey interview on Friday night at Speedway. And they're still good, but man, back in them late model days when he was rolling with that purple 3, man, they were something. A Gary Causey interview, like some people can really do a really just entertaining interview.
Gary Causey did one this year. Somebody after a big deal with him and Gary Young,
God.
somebody went out there and said, "Boo, you stink!" And he said, "Yeah, you come down here and you do it." And
You clean that up
like-
nicely, by the way.
Like, like he walked up to the fence and told the guy that.
Yeah.
And to Randy's credit, Randy followed him with the microphone so you could hear it.
Hey, there's none better than John Force. I don't care who you are in motorsports. I've never met a NASCAR driver, IndyCar, Formula One, go-karts, baby karts. I don't care. Nobody gives an out-of-the-car interview like John Force. I don't care if John Force was drag racing buggies over at the food line, I would want to ask John Force, how'd your run go? Because I know he's so raw and so real about it, and he's giving you everything he's got. Like there's none better than John Force.
And I think he's like 70, and I think even at 70, he's got more energy than the rest of us.
He wears it on his sleeve.
Yeah. And I will say this about Kyle Busch. He says what he says in the car, but he also says it on the microphone.
Yeah, he doesn't.
So
turn
you can't say he's fake. You might not like his attitude, but he's not.
He's authentic.
Yeah, I think that one time, where did he win? Was it Indy or somewhere else where he said, if you don't like that kind of racing, just don't even watch?
Yeah, Kyle Larson threw the slide job on him, and then he moved Kyle Larson.
Yeah.
Where was that?
It's gotta be.
I think it was a mile and a half.
It has to be like Kentucky or somewhere like that. Those have always been pretty decent races.
Yeah, I think that was a good thing that he did there, because I think it speaks to the raw. The passion of what they're doing is pretty good.
Well, I mean, he wants to win. You look at just his facial expression when they come up and interview him, and he's got to sit there and explain why he lost to his.
He's got a terrible poker face.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
terrible poker face.
He just lost to his brother. He doesn't want to say anything.
No.
But whatever he does say is going to be golden.
AJ Foyt's another good one. Man.
Oh, he's the toughest dude.
Just give it to me 120 proof. Don't give me straight no chaser.
And his reincarnation of Tony Stewart.
That's who Tony Stewart looked up to. So that's where a lot of Tony Stewart's came from. I think.
I'd rather you just be honest. I mean, I despise. Hate's a strong word. I despise the young ones that get trained up in a certain way, where they're basically reading off the script without the script in front of their face.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I know you want to put forward the best face possible, but I'd rather you just be real about it, And even if it's a shorter interview, I'd rather you be short and real than give me the script.
That's probably the worst thing. Like, as a fan, you see these guys all polished and stuff when they're talking on the cameras, and then let's say you're walking in the pits and you see him, and you might hear him say something that you weren't expecting to hear him say, and you're like, oh, I don't like that guy anymore. He is so not real.
Well, I think that's, Tyler, we really appreciate you coming on, man. I think that's going to do it here for this episode of the Ace Speedway Recap. Fans, if you're listening, if you want to see Tyler Williams come back to Ace Speedway, leave it in the comments below. But for now, I'm Jason Turner with Kyle Painter, Zack Albright, and Tyler Williams. We really appreciate you coming back on, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We will see you guys August 6th at the track. Be sure to like, share, submit, follow, anything that you can do to reach out to us. Let us know how you like the show. Let us know what you'd like to see. And for now, we'll see you soon.